Hi guys, welcome back to the Repat Diaries. So first of all, let me just say I appreciate the overwhelming response to my first video, and on top of that, I really appreciate people reaching out to me and like expressing to me, especially not knowing me, but expressing to me like how they are also going through their own personal transformations, and how my video just really touched them. And I was like, wait, I didn't even get into the meat and potatoes yet. And folks are already like, oh my God, thank you for being so transparent and sharing your truth. And it has really like encouraged me to share my truth as well. And you know, can't wait to see more of your videos. I'm just like, whoa, thank you guys. Like, I mean, just the love and the support. I appreciate you so much, because let me tell you, this is not easy. Honestly, this is like being naked in front of the entire world. And I just need y'all to know this takes courage. And trust me, I'm pulling this out of the deepest, darkest place in my spirit to be able to share my truth with you all, because nobody wants to be this vulnerable. But I think we're living in a time right now where transparency and vulnerability is necessary. So thank you guys so much. I had to get that out. Yeah. So I wanted to talk to you guys about tapping out to tune in, and how leaving America forced me to make some hard but necessary decisions. To be honest, before leaving America, everything was an issue. America was an issue. Gun violence was an issue. Racism was an issue. Sexism was an issue. Family was an issue. Friends were issues. Every city I lived in, I was unhappy in. It was just never enough. And honestly, it took for me to leave here to realize that I was the common denominator. And it's so funny, because for so long I have been unfulfilled and dissatisfied with something, not recognizing that that something was me. So prior to leaving, we were living in LA, working, taking care of DJ, you know, the same old, a lot of the routines that most of us have, right? Kind of that mundane life, that hamster wheel of life that we all get on and we subscribe to, and we just do it. And it started to weigh heavily on me. And honestly, I had a strong pull to want to go to Africa probably since I was in college, and I never knew why. I just never knew why. But for my 30th birthday, I was like, I gotta go. And that was actually my very first trip to the continent. And even that particular trip was transformative. And I think once I got a taste of it, I was like, I gotta go back. So, but prior to leaving, we had, I think, become frustrated with just like everything that was going on in America. So that kind of became a driving force. That, and just feeling like there was more out there, and maybe there were better opportunities abroad, and all these reasons, you know, coming up with all these reasons why leaving was the answer. Little did I know, none of those reasons was the reason. That I think Spirit was like, you just let's go get quiet for a little while. So once we got to the continent, to be honest, even then I was still operating the same way I had been operating in America for most of my life. I was just going through the motions. And now that I look back, because it's funny, now I process more about the journey through 10 African countries than I did when I was actually in the moment. And I find that we all do that a lot. We're always worried about either yesterday or tomorrow, and we're rarely present in right now. And so when I got back to America, everything came rushing to the forefront. I'm like, oh snap, I was standing in front of the pyramids. Oh snap, I did go to Goree Island, and I was walking through, you know, the streets of Goree Island where some of our ancestors were. And oh, you know, I did go to the slave dungeons, you know, also, you know, in Cape Coast in Ghana, and I did go to Rwanda, you know, where horrible genocide had happened, and, you know, able to see the faces of the survivors of that and their children and their children's children. And it's like, you don't think about any of these things when you're in it, because truth be told, you have so much going on within your own self that you cannot see the beauty in your experiences. And that's where I was. Just all of the fog and the stuff and the baggage. And it's funny that, you know, we sold everything and moved with just the clothes that we had, but I had so much more baggage with me than I realized. So anyway, Africa made me get very, very quiet. We really weren't doing social media. There were times where in certain countries we didn't even have a television, or there wasn't any cable or anything like that. Internet is sketchy in most places, and you have to pay for it. Like, you have to pay as you go, because most African societies are pay as you go societies. So you just spend a lot of time with your thoughts and your thoughts get very loud. And even then, I was trying to still keep all of that out. Like, you know, I don't want to think about some of the big elephants in the room. I just want to be. So, I think what I did and what I have always done is came up with some type of goal, right? And at that time, we were trying to figure out which country worked for us and also establish a business somewhere. So that became the focus, right? And now that I think about it, we operate so often from a place of being distracted. Distractions make it easy to deal with life, because honestly, being distracted is a coping mechanism that I think especially our community has become very accustomed to. I was talking to one of my girlfriends one day and I said, you know, I believe that Black people have become masters of operating in the midst of chaos. And we were talking about this because in August of 2017, we came back to the States for a month, or 2 months actually. One of those months we spent here in Louisiana, in New Orleans, and we went to Whitney Plantation. And if you have not been to Whitney Plantation, please go. Like, please go. It's a must. It's a must, 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 must. And if you can, and if you do go, Brother Ali, shout out to you being one of the best tour guides I think I've ever met, ever. He's such a knowledgeable brother, and he's just amazing. Anyway, so while we were on the tour, you know, he's talking about how our ancestors just operated, the day-to-day operations of being on a plantation. And so I'm looking around and I'm kind of, you know, I see, you know, the cottages or shacks or whatever you want to call them where they lived, and then there's all the sugar cane, and there's the big house and all of this stuff. And in my mind, I'm kind of playing out the day-to-day, because I'm a visual person, and in my mind I have to make things make sense. So but I have to see them. So I'm looking around and I can actually see like people, and you know, and the women over here singing and cooking, and maybe the kids over here playing, and you got, you know, people in the fields, and I'm thinking about all these things, and I'm like, but can you imagine what was really happening in the midst of all of that? People are getting beat and raped, and you know, there's this hard work, and I think about, you know, how they operated during like storm season and all of these things. And it's just like that's where I was. I know most people was probably really on the tour. Not Myra. I was somewhere else. And I was like, but they had to go somewhere within their being to not be there. And it reminds me of that song, your body's here with me, but your mind is on the other side of town. Right? Yeah, some of y'all know that song. And it's like, I'm here, but I'm not here. And I really believe that we have mastered that, and we have passed that down through generations. And I realize I am a master of that. I have become a master of that, of being in the midst of chaos or just an environment that really doesn't serve me in any way. But I can exist in it, I can operate in it, and I can function in it. And so I've lived my life like that, and I think a lot of us have lived our lives like that. And so I was in Africa, definitely there, but I wasn't really there, because so much was in me and sitting with me. So anyways, once I got back to America, I had time to really think. And the first thing that came to me was, are you genuinely fulfilled? Are you really happy? What is your purpose? Why are you so angry? Why are you so hurt? Who has wronged you and who have you wronged? And I'm sitting there like, huh? Huh? Because I be having conversations with myself like that. What you talking about, Myra? And I had to really think about it, like, whoa, yeah, it's time. It's time to unpack. So, the very first thing that came to mind was how often I have moved further and further away from New Orleans. Now, anybody who knows me, they know majority of my family is either in New Orleans or in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. My family goes back generations and generations in Louisiana. Everybody's here. But Myra decided at 18 she was no longer going to be here. She was not going to be like anybody in her family. She was going to be great. First generation graduate. She was going to be the first one to get married and not be divorced. She just was going to do all of these things that was so different from everybody else. And a lot of you probably can relate to this, kind of feel like this black sheep. I've always felt like this kind of black sheep in my family. And not in a bad way. I just always felt different. I always wanted different things. Wanted to go different places. That's just how I was. So I had made up in my mind that that's what I was going to do. And so when I left here, I went to Clark, Atlanta, stayed there until I met Dale, left there, moved to Chicago, stayed there for about 3.5 years, left there, moved to LA, stayed there for about 3.5 years, left there, moved to Africa. And it's funny, I was talking to my grandmother one day, and she was like, every time I look up, you're further and further away. I'm like, yeah. And so one of the questions I had to ask myself is, what are you running from? What are you running from? And now I know it was myself, because I realized that every single person that is in your life and that is attached to you is a mirror of you. And being around family can be like standing in Macy's dressing room with the 3-way mirrors. And you like, oh, my booty not as big as I thought it was. Right? You get to see all them angles that you don't really like. And you're like, So a lot of times you avoid them. And that's what I've been doing. Definitely avoidance. And I think we all suffer with that as well, avoidance. And so you're like, oh, I ain't never going back. So even when I would come and visit, I would come, stay for a couple of weeks, and I would be gone. You know, and I would come, and I would be gone. And I realized I was really just running from myself. And coming back home would bring up a lot of trauma for me. It would bring up a lot of hurt and pain and unanswered questions, and I didn't want to deal. And it also made me have to face the fact that I wasn't really living in my truth. I wasn't really happy at all. I wasn't fulfilled with what I was doing with my life. I wasn't necessarily this perfect little wife and mother that I had portrayed to family and friends, and I didn't want anybody to see that. So I stayed away, far away. And I guess once I went to Africa, I couldn't get no further than that unless I was going to the moon, and you know. And so I had to come real with myself. And so when I came back, the first thing that I had to really tackle is the relationship with my mom and the divorce of my parents. My parents were divorced when I was 7. And from what I remember of my parents, they were extremely in love. And you go from one day having this family unit and things making sense to it's me, mommy, and my brother. What we doing? Daddy ain't here no more. Why? You don't get any questions. You really can't formulate any questions because you're too young. And so now I'm on somebody else's journey, and they're making decisions for my life, and I gotta just roll with it. And I never acted out. I never lashed out. I never did any of those things. I literally roll with it. And the reason why I was rolling with it is because guess what? That's what my mother was doing. She was rolling with it. And you know, I asked my girlfriend the other day, I said, what has your mother taught you without ever opening her mouth? She's like, wait a minute, hold on, one more time. Give it to me one more time. I said, what is your mother or grandmother, you know, the women in your life, what have they taught you without ever opening their mouth? What have you learned from them by just watching them? Well, for me, I've learned how to make yourself small so other people feel bigger and better about themselves. I've learned how to take abuse and believe that that's love and convince yourself that that's love. I've learned how to suffer in silence. I've learned how to be very tired but push through it. I've learned how to put my dreams and aspirations on the back burner for other people. I've learned how to be a people pleaser. I've learned how to rely on religion as a way to self-medicate. I've learned how to